Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bookworm Banter. I'm your host, Ariana, and this is the podcast where we're taking reading to the next level, one page turn at a time. From covers to chatter, we've got the books that matter. And the book that matters this week is The Happy Place. The Happy Place is a book that we are here to discuss. If you guys tuned in last week to the podcast, you know that this would be the book that we are reviewing this week. If you went out and bought it, that is amazing. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the review. I'm going to be 100% with you guys. I read this book some time ago. I read this book in June, but I still wanted to go ahead and review it for you. I read this book in about 3 or 4 days, and I was on a deadline. I was reading this book for the book review for me and my friend, and the book review was coming up very quickly, and I had so many things to get done and other things to do. So I read this book in about 3 days to make sure I would be ready for the review for her and I. And I ended up just going through it too quickly, I think, and not really appreciating the book for what it was at that time. Because back then I thought like, oh, it was just okay. There were good things about the book, but it was just okay. But getting ready to do this review, I started to like look back at the book and think back about what happened in the book and the characters. And I started thinking to myself, wow, this book might be a little better than I gave it credit at that time when I first initially read it. So I actually appreciated going back and looking over this book for this review because it made me feel better about the book. And it really, in hindsight, I was like, wow, there are a lot of things in this book that I thought to myself were like good. Okay. So we're gonna jump right into the review. First off, what I do want to say about this book, I don't know what's up with these books that I'm reading where they cannot stick to one timeline. I don't know what's happening there. This book, it jumps from the beginning of the main character's relationship to present day. So it kind of gives perspective of what the storyline was like for the main couple, which is nice. I have no complaints about how they did this, like the flashbacks, but it is another book where it's not just a one story shot. It does jump back past to present. So the main characters of this book, I wrote them down so I don't forget them, their names. Uh, Main characters are Sabrina, Cleo, and Harriet. Those are the three best friends they met in college. And then you have their partners, Kimmy, Parth, and Wynn. Wynn and Harriet are going to be the main characters there, who the story is mostly surrounded by. The book, while it's about all of them, it's more about their relationships with each other. And then Wynn and Harriet are going to be your main story, your main romance. It's a love story, guys. So, several things I liked about this book is one, the friend group, Harriet, Cleo, and Sabrina. I think that their friend group is really admirable to still be friends for that long throughout so many things. And we all know as you grow as adults that it's difficult to maintain and cultivate new friendships or maintain old ones. So it was really nice to see that they held such fond memories of each other and such fond memories of the place that really bonded them over the years. So I really like that about the book. Sabrina, she is the lawyer, kind of uppity, but like she's like a rich girl lawyer. I won't say that she's entitled by any means. Seems like she works really hard for what she has, but she's just very much the person who cares the most in the group, it seems. She's really trying to hold the friend group together and keep everybody together, especially this last year at it's like a mansion. I wouldn't call it a cottage, but it's like a mansion in Maine. She's trying to hold the friend group together. And then we have Cleo, who is the farmer. She was going to school, I think for art or something like that, and then decided she wanted to become a farmer. And her girlfriend is Kimmy, and Sabrina's fiance is Parth. And Harriet and Wynn, they were engaged for some time. And Harriet is a medical student. At that time, she was going to med school, and her and Wynn end up breaking up. Wynn breaks up with her, and little to no explanation. He just leaves. His father passed, so he leaves to go to another state, Wisconsin, one of those states up there, and he leaves to go take care of his family, and just never comes back, and like texts her like, "Oh yeah, I don't think you're happy. This isn't working." Blah blah blah. Woo woo woo. They break up. So the setting of the book is going to be them all at the mansion one last time for Lobster Fest or something like that. Either way, they're all at this mansion one last time because Sabrina's uncle plans on selling the estate. So this is the last time that they are going to all be able to be at this place. They invite Wynn, who at first says that he can't make it. So they kind of surprise Harriet with her ex-boyfriend. They don't know that he's her ex-boyfriend because she didn't share any of that information. Throughout the book, you kind of see that the main friend group, Sabrina, Cleo, and Harriet, have kind of grown apart over the years, which is normal. And that so she doesn't want to share with them that she has broken up with Wynn. Um, so yeah, that's that. Um, I think what I want to say first and foremost about this book, I'm all over the place with it, but one of my favorite lines in the book that I think was most memorable, and when I think about this book and think about talking about this book, I actually had to look up the quote that still just makes like me like shudder, I guess. It's on page 92, and it's referring to, I guess, when they first get there, Harriet gets a little too drunk, and Wynn helps her to the room, and she wakes up. I don't think she has panties on. She's wearing his old t-shirt that she returned to him, and she can't really remember what happens. So the next day, that when she wakes up, she's trying to remember what happens, and this is what she says. Another flash of memory. Me kneeling on the ground atop the comforter, wind dragged to the floor. Arms up, baby, he says gently. He peels the ruined white t-shirt over my head, runs a cool washcloth over my collarbones, collecting what's left of my mess. I can barely keep my eyes open. Okay, so the rest goes on more like that. But I think that was my favorite line of the whole book. Just that soft, arms up, baby. I just feel like I could hear that. And I don't even know if it was something meant to be like sexual, or I don't know, it just sounds very sexual to me. And throughout the whole book, they are creating so much sexual tension between each other. And I think that's really where it starts for me. And you kind of see that Wynn is not in the place that he is claiming to be in, like he's over Harriet and that he's happy without her, or however he wants to word it, or however the book words it. But that arms up baby was just for me kind of like, hmm. So when I think about this book, that line definitely just brings me back to it and makes me feel good about the book. If and of all the writing in the book, I think that was probably like the sexiest thing for me. So throughout the book, guys, I'm not gonna do like a step by step book review like I have done for some of the other books, but I am gonna say a couple of things about the book. One, this sexual tension between Wynn and Harriet, y'all, it wouldn't be me, couldn't be me, because she like they go to a club and she's like grinding up on him and shaking her butt onto him, sitting on his lap, and she's really doing it to herself, creating all that sexual tension. And the way I'm built, a squirrel got to get a nut. You know what I'm saying? So if this were me in this book, I definitely wouldn't be as strong willed as they seem to be, especially some like throughout the book. They are putting themselves in all these sexual situations. Like they get locked in a cellar together, the cellar where they first kissed and had their first intimate moment. And they're back in that place. And it kind of seems like it's constant roller coaster of sexual tension between them. And it gets to the point where they're in their shared bedroom together and they're like almost there. And it's like, I don't think this is a good idea. Like, what? We can think about that after. Let's do what we came to do and keep it moving. But they do not. It is a very much cat and mouse throughout the whole book of Harriet and Win. And I don't read very many romance books, so I don't know if this be the case for other romance books. But for this romance book, it was evident, obvious, and predictable that Win and Harriet were going to get back together. I knew that from the beginning of the book, just based on how everything was going. Like, Harriet's talking about how upset she still is that they're not together, and how Win left things with no explanation, no closure, that they're like this, they have this heated attraction, unexplainable, just when they're together, everything's just in alignment. There's so many things throughout the book that you can see that she still very much cares about him. And just the way that he's acting, it's clearly not that he's acting for the group, because they don't tell the group that they're broken up. Even when they get to the cottage mansion, they don't say that they're broken up. They want to preserve their last outing together, their last stay at the mansion. They don't want to ruin things by telling their friend group that their friend group is breaking up, essentially. So they don't say anything. And it is very evident that Win is not acting. Whereas Harriet is trying to act vengeful and nonchalant in a way, but also like they're still together. Win is very much like, why are you punishing me? Like, I thought you were happy and things like that. So, um, yeah, it's very evident how the book is written that they're going to get back together. If it wasn't for you, then please tell me why you thought differently, because definitely they were going to get back together for sure. So outside of Win and Harriet, Sabrina and Parth, they're probably like the most uneventful couple. They seem like they obviously have their things together. They're getting engaged. They both know that Harriet and Win are not together because Parth went to visit Win and he took his phone to take a picture of him and Win to send to Harriet, and opens Harriet's text chat between Win and her. And he sees that Win was writing like a regretful text message that was never sent about them breaking up. So he knew that they were broken up. And I'm sure he told Sabrina that they were broken up. So they both knew that they were not together. Cleo and Kimmy, everyone seems to love Kimmy. She's like the fun girl of the group. And then Cleo's pregnant. So she's been hiding that from the group. And Sabrina's kind of mad at Cleo because she tried to come visit her on the farm at some point, and Cleo just kept getting out of it and then like never invited her back or something like that. So Sabrina feels like the friend group is kind of falling apart. So she's really trying to keep it together. That's like her main role in the whole situation. Um, One thing I will say that's nice about the friend group is that at the end they do all kind of admit to each other that they've been kind of growing apart and that they want to work on being better friends to each other, which is really nice, especially Sabrina, who seems to be the most heartfelt one about the friend group and really wanting to stick together, mostly because she doesn't have her own like functional family. She says her dad got divorced, her mom and her had a good relationship, but then her dad remarried and she's always kind of felt like the outsider. So she has made this friend group her family. And so she's like falling apart at the fact that it is kind of falling apart. So she really is trying to keep the friend group together so she can cox this whole plan on how to get Win there because her and Parth are engaged. So that's how they get Win there. Another thing I like about this book is Harriet's character arc. She is in med school and she's trying to become a neurosurgeon, I believe. And med school is hard, y'all. Like, I work in the medical field and I, for no reason outside of money, don't understand why anybody would want to spend that much of their life dedicated to just learning how to do a job. And yes, we need neurosurgeons, and there are some really great ones. And it takes time and dedication and patience and lots of money to do that kind of job. But it's definitely not for the weak, and it's definitely not for everybody. And Harriet admits that the idea of her being a neurosurgeon was more intriguing than the actual practice of her being a neurosurgeon. Like, she loves school, she's super smart, but residency, going to med school, it was just overwhelming for her. And she can finally admit at the end of the book that she doesn't want to do that anymore. And I just think that that was really a beautiful thing to be able to face that mirror in your life, because when you get on that journey of becoming a neurosurgeon, she has probably spent 6, 7, 8 years getting to the place where she was at, just between pre-med, med school, and then residency. It was probably longer than 8 years, probably 10 years of because I think she's in like her first or second residency of becoming a neurosurgeon. So to dedicate that much time in your life to a career and something you were passionate about your whole entire life. Like, she said she wants to be a neurosurgeon since a very young age. So that was always her goal. And it's like, if you're not going to do that, what are you going to do? And I think there are so many people in their lives today, in real life, that cannot admit that they have chosen the wrong career and then do something about it. Like, for me, I'm in the middle of a career change and I didn't spend that long in school, but I've been doing my career for 7 years, and it just got to a point where I felt like I'm not happy. I can't see myself doing this for another 30 years. So why keep doing it one more day? And I think that's really hard for some people to figure out what direction to take after that, to leave the comfort that they know and to find a new path that's going to make them happy, because baby, we only got one life to live. So I very much am a firm believer in not complaining and changing. So for Harriet's character arc to find her journey into realizing that she's not happy with her career choice and going to school, and that she does not want to be a neurosurgeon anymore, I really commended that for her, because that's an extremely hard thing to do, to give up that much of your life to then just give up what you had worked so hard for. So kudos to her. Win's character arc was really good as well, because we do learn a lot about Win and what happened within the relationship towards the end of the book. we learned that he was like very depressed and that he just never thought that he was a good enough person, never smart enough, never deep enough. And I think that can also be reflective for a lot of people today because we're our own worst critics. So feeling like, especially standing next to a neurosurgeon, I mean, Wynn was like in and out of jobs and he flunked out of college and then just followed Harriet to a place that he'd never been before and was in and out of jobs trying to make ends meet and take care of her and things like that. So, yeah, I could definitely see why he would feel like he's not enough during that time in his life. And he never really felt like that. He felt like people were always very attracted to him for what he looked like, but then left when they realized he wasn't like super deep or anything like that. So that was really sad for me for him. And then you learn that he also is now like on some meds. They don't say what it is, but he's on some meds to help with like his depression and his anxiety and things. And so he says like physically, mentally, and emotionally, he's in a better place. So that kind of gives you insight as to what happened between him and Harriet and why he broke things off the way that he did. Also, one cool thing, it left my mind just as quickly as it came. Harriet Wynn. Yeah, I don't know. I forgot. But oh, yes. So this friend group, honestly, it kind of reminds me of Friends. So I am a huge lover of Friends. Friends is life. And the character group really like three guys, three girls, same kind of thing as Friends. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the cover of the book. Yes, definitely because of the cover of the book. I'm definitely picturing Sabrina as a brunette. She's very Monica. And then Cleo is Phoebe. And Harriet is Rachel. So yeah, that would make Parth Chandler, but I don't get Chandler in it. I guess maybe. Parth is kind of like the funny guy, always the party guy. So yeah, maybe Parth could be Chandler. No, but yeah, the friend group is definitely giving me Friends. It's giving me Monica, Phoebe, Rachel, at least the girls. I don't know about the guys, but yeah, the girl group is definitely like, I can see those characters, Friends, Phoebe, and I can see those characters, Phoebe, Monica, and Rachel within those characters. So I wonder, is Miss Emily Henry feeling the same way because the carefreeness of Cleo, like not hippie, but just like very artistic, very go with the flow, very one with the earth. Like she definitely reminds me of Phoebe. So I just thought of that as we're talking about the book. But yeah, so the book ends with Wynn and Harriet getting back together. Harriet moves to whatever northern state Wynn is in. She moves in with him and his mom, and she's doing like pottery. In the meantime, while she figures out her life, breaking the news to her parents about her not being a neurosurgeon anymore seemed very difficult for her, which obviously you don't want to disappoint anybody, especially when they've given you that much support and love and hold you to such high expectations. But like I said, you only have one life to live. So we're going to live it for us and not anybody else. And it actually brought her and her sister closer together, which in the book they have issues because Harriet's sister feels like she's always comparing herself to Harriet and that her parents look at her as the disappointment and Harriet as like this goddess. And that had drove them apart in childhood and throughout their older age to where they weren't that close. So her sister just reach out to her and tell her like, oh, you did the right thing. That's so great for you. Like, I'm so proud of you for following your heart and not being afraid of what the parents think. So That was really great for her. Trying to think of other key points. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. I think the biggest thing for me that made the book as good as it was one, like I said, the Friends reference. Huge fan of Friends. So Sabrina, Cleo, and Harriet, they're like Phoebe, Monica, and Rachel for me. So that comparison really great. Another thing that made the book so great is the sexual tension in the book. It's like very PG-13. I feel like it's not like smut kind of reading, but the sexual tension is there and very much created on both parties, when in Harriet. And I think it's very interesting to read, especially because, like I said, it would not be me. The sexual tension that they're creating, I would have gave in like the first 2 days. So it's just interesting to see how long they can really keep that going and hold back, even though they are so intertwined. I think that was really great about the book. And the last thing that I think was good about the book was the writing. It was really good writing, super easy to read. And that line, "Arms up, baby," I think I will remember that line probably forever. I don't know why it was so significant for me. Um, but yeah, it just was like, it was one of the sexiest things in the book, in my opinion. And there was a lot of like sexy moments, but something about that was so innocent and so caring, but also like a sexual undertone. I feel like, I don't know, it was just that was the line for me that made the book. So yeah, guys, leave a comment, tell me what you thought of the book. I would recommend this book. The Happy Place was one of those books that I actually look back on and have really fond memories of. So I'm really glad that I read it. And I think a lot of people like it as well. So I see why now that I really think about it and give it insight. So I really suggest to you guys, if you have read a book that you thought was just like okay, go back and look at it. Go back and review it. Just go back and look at it. Just for fun, and see if you have a different perspective of what you thought of the book. Because I definitely did of this book when I started looking back at this book to review it. I was like, wow, this was kind of good. So yeah, guys, that's going to conclude the review for Happy Place. Highly recommend. Very good book if you like a romance novel and you like to read about a little sexual tension. I definitely suggest this book. It's really good read, really easy read. And I think it's a book that you could definitely read within a week. If you're an avid reader, you could read this really fast. So that concludes The Happy Place. So next week, guys, we are going to read a book that I just recently read. I just finished it last week. It is called The Reader. The Reader is Oprah's book club book. When I started reading this book, I didn't realize that it was also a movie. So I read the book, I watched the movie. Next week review, we're going to talk about both. And if you guys don't know anything about The Reader, I'm going to read you the back of the cover. So if you're interested, you go out, buy it, read it, come back and listen to the review next week. So here is the back of the book reading. Hailed for its coiled eroticism and the moral claims it makes upon the reader, this mesmerizing novel is a story of love and secrets, horror and compassion unfolding against the haunted landscape of post-war Germany. When he falls ill on his way home from school, 15-year-old Michael Berg is rescued by Hannah, a woman twice his age. In time, she becomes his lover. She enthralls him with her passion, but puzzles him with her odd silences. Then she inexplicably disappears. When Michael next sees her, he is a young law student and Hannah is on trial for a hideous crime. But as he watches her refuse to defend herself, Michael gradually realizes that his former lover may be guarding a secret she considers more shameful than murder. So, guys, this is the book that we'll be reviewing next week. Once again, that book is The Reader. It's by Bernhard Schlenk. I'm sure I said that wrong, but Bernhard Schlenk. Yeah, it's The Reader. So we'll be back here next week to review The Reader. I have some very interesting viewpoints about it, especially the movie. Come back and find out, guys. Thank you for coming back this week, and we'll see you next week.